many sessions we're doing.
Okay. All right. 3.
You
Yeah.
He always does this countdown thing. I razz him terribly.
I know.
Okay, do your thing. Okay, I won't razz you. Okay.
Hi, this is Peter Tenchney with Medievalverse.net.
Hi, this is Sandra Sadowski with Medievalverse.net.
And we are with, for our roundtable tonight, Dan Franke, Douglas Biggs, and Professor David Green. Thank you.
Nice.
So we're doing well. So good to start off today. Well, it's been hot, but it's cooled off. So
it's still going, even if it goes hot.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, first of all, you guys, 3 of you, you two have just been in your papers today, and you were organizing the session of the Society of the White Hart. But before we get to that, let's. What about the papers you've heard so far, either today or yesterday at the Congress, that you've really liked?
I've only been to White Hart papers thus far. Got in late yesterday. I think a lot of people were delayed flying in. Either it was thunderstorms or there weren't enough pilots. But 2 storms. So I've only been to White Hart things. So the Society of the White Hart people that don't looks mainly at late medieval England, sometimes associated dominions, predominantly associated with Richard II's reign, but not. So a lot of stuff that I've heard today has been mainly about later medieval England. There was a very good session at 10 o'clock this morning, which dealt with various aspects of chivalry. Craig Taylor spoke about chivalry in Henry V's reign, which is interesting. Looking at some of the problems associated with chivalry and trying to unpack it as a concept, perhaps trying to refocus it on ideas to do with honour and masculinity. There was another very interesting paper by Chris Berard, which was focusing on a changing conception of chivalry, perhaps, or a different identification of chivalry in Edward III's reign, the way in which he swapped from the idea of a round table and an Arthurian conception of chivalry to what later emerges as the Imperial Guard. And there was also a very interesting paper by Christian Pinion, which was looking at some of the important 15th century Book of Hours and some of the chivalric imagery. I didn't know.
Go ahead.
For today, well, I mean, I was at the same one in the morning, and I thought Chris raised a point that I hadn't really thought of, which is that why do all the Arthurian references vanish from the Third's chivalric plans? And of course, Craig Taylor's paper I really enjoyed. I've been almost exclusively to De Re Militari sessions. So now, experienced John Halden's presentation on the logistics of Manzikert 1071 in just simply mind-blowing detail. I don't think I was the only one who had that reaction as to not only exactly what the project is showing in terms of how armies moved or how this army moved and how it worked, but also the amount of work and contingencies they have to plan for in order to get the program to give projections. So I thought that was interesting, and I also enjoyed the paper session on the English fight manuals. I wanted to go to. There's been more than one session on fight manuals and such, but you have to choose which wonderful sessions you're going to go to.
What sort of date?
It was British Additional 39564. He said it was, I think, in the late 16th century. But it was a series of exercises, moves, and cuts, which is it's different from German and Italian fight manuals from the later Middle Ages in that those always show static situations against an opponent in which if your opponent does this, you reply like this, and then you finish with the second or third move. This Middle English list of moves doesn't seem to involve an opponent. You're simply performing cuts. once or twice they say, if your opponent feints, then step to the side. And the paper also looked at parallel terminology from dance and dance instruction, which he suggested, I thought very rightly, will explain some terms in these fight manuals which are obscure.
Well, that's interesting. It's almost, I suppose, a name of almost a chivalry of courtesy.
Well, for me, I've been to the same sessions that David has been to, and so I don't need to repeat everything that he just said, but he introduced me as the organizer, and although I didn't organize, I helped organize this year's panels, I have in the past, and what we've always done is at the business meeting every year we set a series of rather general titles, and then we will ask specific people to come, or if they were going to be able to come every year. When I was doing that, I always try to build my sessions around one British academic, and then two, either two Americans, or if we had British students coming, we'd add them in where we could. And when we get a lot of really good graduate student papers like Dan's is, that really helps to keep our society alive, keep it young, and not just have a whole bunch of middle-aged people sitting and talking to each other who know each other anyway. And I think that really helps to get us a lot of audience and give us really, really good high-quality sessions with good high-quality paper.
The White Hart's always been very welcome. It's been very nice society.
Well, that's our goal. We're to try to bring as many people and be as inclusive as possible.
Well, you get a big numbers for you. Like, I think we had pretty much a packed room. So, like, in the sense of the chairs, most of the chairs were filled up today in the session.
Yeah, I always, when I write chair, I always keep count. We had 68 this morning, and we had 43, I think, this afternoon. So we had, we generally run around 50. So that was really good. We're doing really well, and that's a good thing. Because we run 6 sessions, which one of the largest societies at Kalamazoo. Usually people run 5 or 3, but 6 is pretty good number. So we run 6.
Like I was in this morning at the Crusades session, and that drew about 50 people. And there was 3 papers. The one I liked the most was Rebecca Risk's talking about the papacy and Jews in the Crusades. I thought a lot of kind of interesting kind of little tidbits for me because I don't know too much about the topic. So I like that. And beyond that, I heard your guys' papers. It was a lot of really fascinating stuff. Like I love the kind of like English history, and I think everyone does. So. Sandra,
mine are totally different. No military, nothing remotely. The one that I enjoyed the most, the session, was the one I just came from, and it was 13th century women. So totally other point there. But yeah, it was very enjoyable. It was about women purchasing property, and then about religious orders, and then eventually how during the 13th century they went through, Boniface VIII in 1298 implemented these rules about like closure, and I just that's my cup of tea. That's my thing. I like that stuff. So I really enjoyed it. But thus far, that was the best session that I attended. Not that the other ones were bad yesterday. I just was more engrossed. I found the speakers were really articulate, they were very interesting, and inclusive. Did a very good job. So
which it also brings us like having good speakers and like what makes a good speaker. You guys have given papers now, and like we're hoping.
I'm going to interject on
Oh,
this
yeah?
too. This is the thing, I've gone to sessions where it sounds like the paper's going to be riveting, and then the person gets up and delivers the most monotone, dry paper, and I just want to stab myself in the eye.
It's a good experience.
Yeah.
And for me, I know I'm glad when people get up and they engage the audience and they present and they don't
Well, but I think you're right.
So the last one was very engaging for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the topics are going to be engaging for various people in your audience. There's no doubt about that, even if you read them in a boring, well, hopefully, even if you read them in a boring way. But you do have to be a little bit of an entertainer to get people to look at them in the eye and have some feedback.
That's what I think. It's like when you love a topic and you go in, so it's it's going to interest you, but then the delivery.
Because we had one guy, 4 or 5 years ago maybe, who gave his paper. He stood up to give his paper. We were in the Barnhart Center, and he was leaning against the wall. He had turned himself to where he was giving his paper to the wall. The audience was over here, and he was just like this the entire time. We were like, "Oh, we're not going to have him back." No, we were like, "That was enough. Once was enough."
Wow.
Because when you give your paper to the wall, it's really bad. So it's
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah. But like you guys thinking like, all right, how are you going to give a paper? Like, how do you think you're going to engross the audience? Like, what did you think? Like, today's paper, you guys, you wanted to talk about these issues. How did you want to hook the audience into it? Or did you just expect it to kind of be?
I think it does depend on the audience that you're talking about, because it's not the same process as, say, if you're teaching. If you've got a group of undergraduates, then you are attempting to draw them in a different way. In a rather more professional setting, I think you do expect. Well, you expect that people can concentrate for 20 minutes. So, you're not going through quite the same sorts of processes. I remember Chris Wilson telling me, or talking to me about his works and so on. Although it can be very impressive when people just can speak spontaneously, and you can talk on a subject for 20 minutes, and you can do something like that. So you reach a certain stage and you've got a certain familiarity with the subject. Anyone can talk about it. What he wanted was something that had been considered, been timed, and had been prepared, not just someone talking at the top of their head. So I absolutely agree that you can do this better, and you can do it in a more engaging way. But at the same time, probably in this sort of setting, the material is more important than the method of delivery. It's not to say that I want to go see 3 papers in which people don't know, but the material should, to an extent, do some of the speaking for itself.
I think one thing I always do when I broad present as well is I try to only have 3 or at most 4 main points, because that way, if you're sitting in the audience, you can remember 3 things that I said, 3 major things about whatever topic I'm going to talk about that I said. If I try to do 5 or 6 or 7, you're going to be
probably very well. I tried to do about 73.
One of the papers, that's exactly what the woman did. She went through 4 elements for religious orders, and it was very concise, it was very efficient, and then she said, and now I'm going to tell you. It was, it wasn't flashy or anything, but I really enjoyed it because I came away with it. She kept me interested. She didn't ramble or
I think
tangent.
What can be interesting about these are papers that really are designed to be read rather than read out.
Oh,
And there is a
point.
difference.
Yeah, for sure.
I made that mistake
Yeah.
once.
Oh, yeah.
Just once in the last year, where afterwards, some of my friends came up to me after and said, "That was good, but your sentence structure is way too complex, and you're using. Not that it's wrong to use complex words, but you're talking to people. They're not reading it."
Yeah.
I got exactly that feedback.
When I started doing presentations connected with my PhD, which was very heavily prosopographic, you're just reading the telephone directly.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
If people know the characters that you're talking about, it's great, it's fine, it works. They don't. After a while,
It's a very
lazy.
headlights look. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's an element of that. I said you have to let the material talk for itself. Not always.
Something Kelly DeVries told me a couple of years ago. He said, PowerPoint's great, but people like to have something to hold in their hands that they can fidget with and look at, and look down, and take notes on. If their attention's wandering, they look down, they see a picture of the chart, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." They look back up. And so I'm kind of glad I did a handout.
We do surprisingly few PowerPoints. I don't know in other sessions where we
I
were.
had one today and handouts. The last session had all handouts and points. And
Because
it's a very good point. It did. It kept you interested.
I did do one of those PowerPoints. This was actually 5 years ago. Because I know you were sitting in the front row. I remember you were sitting there. But I did it for a day race session.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had, some music clips in it too. And I was, had all this stuff and a little video clip. So, I don't know if people remembered it at all, but it was fun to put together.
Yeah,
So,
I just think it's interesting that there aren't more, because now, again, when it's English,
and
you tend
it's,
to use them.
I use one little PowerPoint all the time. Yeah. So,
Like when I get my paper tomorrow, I don't have any handouts or things like, and I'm, to me, I kind of aim as a story, kind of come into as I'm telling a story. So like that's we'll see how it goes. If people like the story or not, but it's also with my material I can do it like that. So I have to kind of I have to kind of not entertaining my audience, but I have to keep them interested.
There are always questions about how much you can presuppose the audience and what you can do, what you can do in a 20-minute slot as well. It's long enough to hang yourself, certainly long enough to say substantial.
Well, I have a 15-minute slot because there's 4 people.
Just as long as you don't get a snoring ovation.
Well, most of the people that go to the sessions are people who are interested in the topic. I'd say 100%.
Oh, yeah.
There's butterflies that go around.
Yeah.
Well,
Test
sometimes
the waters of everything.
I think going to sessions that you really don't know anything about, you're vaguely aware of can be in some way.
I remember last year, you guys said that one of the most fascinating panels was one, I can't remember what it was on, but the list of papers sounded like something that you said ordinarily you think we'd never go to this, and you go, and you come away. It was a medical panel, I think.
I think it was,
I think it was a
one
medical
that was
panel.
crammed. It
Yeah.
was totally crammed, and it was, I think, medicine and poisons and things too, and it was, I don't know, there were a couple, that I come out of pleasantly surprised, and I'm glad that I went.
On the whole, this year there are fewer 4-paper panels.
So
I remember
we're
last year there was
last
one.
Yeah, I think attendance is a little bit down this year anyway.
Yeah, that's my feeling. It seemed to be less people.
I think they've deliberately cut the number of sessions.
Yeah, they did it. Because they were getting too many.
They were getting packed last year.
Too many papers.
And I have noticed, yes, the past 2 days, everything that I've attended, there's a lot of seats to go to.
Like
They're small.
more room for us, more breathing room at
I
least.
just wish the things were air conditioned.
No.
I sat through a paper this morning and I was dying, fanning myself with the handout.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That's the other use for handouts.
It's fanning yourself. That's really fun.
Just to finish up, are you anything you're interested in seeing? Like we got still 2 days left. Well, 1.5 days left. Anything left that you guys? Oh, I really want to hear that.
Peter Fleming's talking tomorrow.
I want to hear that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
I can't remember who else this week.
Laura, from Chris's student from St. Andrews. Yep.
Very good, yes. Interesting.
Interested in one of the afternoon day race sessions. The 3:30 session. Looking forward to that. I think Alana Cruz giving a paper tomorrow. Catch that. Ironically, there's a speaking of getting off of one's normal topic, there's a Medievalverse session. The last, the 10:30 Sunday slot.
Yeah, mine's
That's what
3:30.
I'm looking forward to. I'm going to go there and cheer him on, be in the back, and be like, woo, Peter, go.
Well,
Just as long as you're not throwing bad vegetables.
No, I won't heckle him. Come on, I can't heckle my partner.
Well, she might.
Yeah.
It's like,
When the rotten tomatoes come from the back of the room, we'll
You
know.
suck.
Ouch.
yeah, my
Tough room.
cheerleading squad. Yes.
Tough room,
I'll get a wave going.
There you go.
Like the only thing
That would-
besides my own paper, which I'm really interested in, is
He's modest too, don't you know?
I'm gonna. There's a one in the morning about the Byzantines and the Mongols. So, and like that's my area of interest. So, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing on that paper in particular, because see what I haven't covered.
Yeah, that was the actually I have that written down. Byzantium / Mongols. It's
Yeah.
the same paper. Yeah.
So, like, but you know, beyond that, like so far the conference, I think I've enjoyed the conference so far. It's you know, I find it kind of, you know, everything's been, the papers have been good. Not, I've heard ones that haven't been, I'd say great, but
I haven't heard anything terrible.
I haven't heard anything terrible. I haven't heard, like, I've learned something from everything I've done.
Oh,
I,
my poor, I'm looking over my back going, oh, please no.
Yeah.
Right.
with that, I guess I'll just say thank you all for
Thank you so much
yeah.
for doing
Thanks today. Thanks, guys.
this. Yes.
Get inside
Quick,
before it rains.
save it.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter, do your thing.